The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. Welcome back to the Berean Pursuit. This is week 21, day 4. Today we're reading from 2 Samuel, chapters 21 through 23, Psalm 18, and Romans chapter 3. Last time in 2 Samuel, we read about how David's men won against Absalom's men. Joab killed Absalom, and David tried to remove Joab as the commander of his army after that, and make Amasa, who was the commander of Absalom's army, the commander of his army, as he was being restored as king over all of Israel. And then Joab murdered Amasa in pursuit of Sheba, who had brought another rebellion against David. Sheba was killed, and then all of Israel is firmly under David's rule once again. And so that's where we are. So we'll pick up the reading there in 2 Samuel chapters 21 through 23. During the reign of David, there was a famine for 3 successive years, and David sought the face of the Lord. And the Lord said, "It is because of the blood shed by Saul and his family, because he killed the Gibeonites." At this, David summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not Israelites, but a remnant of the Amorites. The Israelites had taken an oath concerning them. But in his zeal for Israel and Judah, Saul had sought to kill them. So David asked the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you? How can I make amends so that you may bless the inheritance of the Lord?" The Gibeonites said to him, "We need no silver or gold from Saul or his house, nor should you put to death anyone in Israel for us." "Whatever you ask, I will do for you," he replied. And they answered the king, "As for the man who consumed us and plotted against us to exterminate us from existing within the border of Israel, let 7 of his male descendants be delivered to us so that we may hang them before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the chosen of the Lord." "I will give them to you," said the king. Now the king spared Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. But the king took Armoni and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons whom Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, had borne to Saul, as well as the 5 sons whom Merab, daughter of Saul, had borne to Adriel, son of Barzillai, the Maholathite. And he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the hill before the Lord. So all 7 of them fell together. They were put to death on the first days of the harvest, at the beginning of the barley harvest. And Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it out for herself on a rock. From the beginning of the harvest until the rain from heaven poured down on the bodies, she did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. When David was told what Saul's concubine, Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, had done, he went and took the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from the men of Jabesh-Gilead, who had stolen them from the public square of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung the bodies after they had struck down Saul at Gilboa. So David had the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan brought from there along with the bones of those who had been hanged. And they buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in Zelah in the land of Benjamin, in the tomb of Saul's father Kish. After they had done everything the king had commanded, God answered their prayers for the land. Once again the Philistines waged war against Israel, and David and his servants went down and fought against the Philistines. But David became exhausted. Then Ishbi-Benob, a descendant of Rapha, whose bronze spear weighed 300 shekels, and who was bearing a new sword, resolved to kill David. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to his aid, struck the Philistine, and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, "You must never again go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel may not be extinguished." Sometime later at Gob, there was another battle with the Philistines. At that time, Sibbecai the Hushathite killed Saph, one of the descendants of Rapha. Once again there was a battle with the Philistines at Gob, and Elhanan, son of Jair the Bethlehemite, killed the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was still another battle at Gath, where there was a man of great stature with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. He too was descended from Rapha, and when he taunted Israel, Jonathan, the son of David's brother Shimei, killed him. So these 4 descendants of Rapha in Gath fell at the hand of David and his servants. And David sang this song to the Lord on the day the Lord had delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold, my refuge, and my Savior. You save me from violence. I will call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. For the waves of death engulfed me. The torrents of chaos overwhelmed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called upon the Lord. I cried out to my God, and from his temple he heard my voice, and my cry for help reached his ears. Then the earth shook and quaked. The foundations of the heavens trembled. They were shaken because he burned with anger. Smoke rose from his nostrils, and consuming fire came from his mouth. Glowing coals blazed forth. He parted the heavens and came down, with dark clouds beneath his feet. He mounted a cherub and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness a canopy around him, a gathering of water and thick clouds. From the brightness of his presence, coals of fire blazed forth. The Lord thundered from heaven. The voice of the Most High resounded. He shot his arrows and scattered the foes. He hurled lightning and routed them. The channels of the sea appeared, and the foundations of the world were exposed at the rebuke of the Lord, at the blast of the breath of his nostrils. He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from foes too mighty for me. They confronted me in my day of calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into the open. He rescued me because he delighted in me. The Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness. He has repaid me according to the cleanness of my hands. For I have kept the ways of the Lord, and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his ordinances are before me. I have not disregarded his statutes. And I have been blameless before him. I kept myself from iniquity. So the Lord has repaid me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanness in his sight. To the faithful, you show yourself faithful. To the blameless, you show yourself blameless. To the pure, you show yourself pure. But to the crooked, you show yourself shrewd. You save an afflicted people, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them down. For you, O Lord, are my lamp. The Lord lights up my darkness. For in you I can charge an army. With my God I can scale a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is flawless. He is a shield to all who take refuge in him. For who is God besides the Lord? And who is the rock except our God? God is my strong fortress, and he makes my way clear. He makes my feet like those of a deer and stations me upon the heights. He trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me your shield of salvation, and your gentleness exalts me. You broaden the path beneath me so that my ankles do not give way. I pursued my enemies and destroyed them. I did not turn back until they were consumed. I devoured and crushed them so they could not rise. They have fallen under my feet. You have armed me with strength for battle. You have subdued my foes beneath me. You have made my enemies retreat before me. I put an end to those who hated me. They looked, but there was no one to save them. To the Lord, but he did not answer. I ground them as the dust of the earth. I crushed and trampled them like mud in the streets. You have delivered me from the strife of my people. You have preserved me as the head of nations. A people I had not known shall serve me. Foreigners cower before me. When they hear me, they obey me. Foreigners lose heart and come trembling from their strongholds. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock. And may God, the rock of my salvation, be exalted, the God who avenges me and brings down nations beneath me, who frees me from my enemies. You exalt me above my foes, you rescue me from violent men. Therefore I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations. I will sing praises to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king. He shows loving devotion to his anointed, to David and his descendants forever. These are the last words of David. The oracle of David, son of Jesse, the oracle of the man raised on high, the one anointed by the God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel. The Spirit of the Lord spoke through me. His word was on my tongue. The God of Israel spoke. The Rock of Israel said to me, He who rules the people with justice, who rules in the fear of God, is like the light of the morning at sunrise of a cloudless dawn, the glistening after the rain on the sprouting grass of the earth. Is not my house right with God? For he has established with me an everlasting covenant, ordered and secured in every part. Will he not bring about my full salvation and my every desire? But the worthless are all like thorns raked aside, for they can never be gathered by hand. The man who touches them must be armed with iron or with the shaft of a spear. The fire burns them to ashes in the place where they lie. These are the names of David's mighty men. Josheb-Basshebeth, the Tachemonite, was chief of the three. He wielded his spear against 800 men, whom he killed at one time. Next in command was Eleazar, son of Dodo the Ahohite. As one of the three mighty men, he went with David to taunt the Philistines who had gathered for battle at Pasdemim. The men of Israel retreated, but Eleazar stood his ground and struck the Philistines until his hand grew weary and stuck to his sword. The Lord brought about a great victory that day. Then the troops returned to him, but only to plunder the dead. And after him was Shammah, son of Agi the Hararite. When the Philistines had banded together near a field full of lentils, Israel's troops fled from them. But Shammah took his stand in the middle of the field, defended it, and struck down the Philistines. So the Lord brought about a great victory. At harvest time, 3 of the 30 chief men went down to David at the cave of Adullam, while a company of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. At that time, David was in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was at Bethlehem. David longed for water and said, "Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem." So the 3 mighty men broke through the Philistine camp, drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and brought it back to David. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out to the Lord, saying, "Far be it from me, O Lord, to do this. Is this not the blood of the men who risked their lives?" So he refused to drink it. Such were the exploits of the 3 mighty men. Now Abishai, the brother of Joab and son of Zeruiah, was chief of the 3, and he lifted his spear against 300 men, killed them, and won a name along with the 3. Was he not more honored than the 3? And he became their commander, even though he was not included among the 3. And Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was a man of valor from Kabzeel, a man of many exploits. He struck down 2 champions of Moab, and on a snowy day he went down into a pit and killed a lion. He also killed an Egyptian, a huge man. Although the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, Benaiah went against him with a club, snatched the spear from his hand, and killed the Egyptian with his own spear. These were the exploits of Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, who won a name alongside the 3 mighty men. He was most honored among the 30, but he did not become one of the 3. And David appointed him over his guard. Now these were members of the 30. Asahel, the brother of Joab, Elhanan, son of Dodo of Bethlehem, Shema the Herodite, Elika the Herodite, Helez the Paltite, Ira son of Ikish the Tekoite, Abiezer the Anathothite, Mebunai the Hushathite, Zalmon the Ahohite, Maharai the Netophathite, Heled son of Bana the Netophathite, Ittai son of Ribai from Gibeah of the Benjamites, Benaiah the Pirathonite, Hiddai from the brooks of Gash, Abi Albon the Arbathite, Asmaveth the Barhamite, Eliabah the Shalbanite, the sons of Jashan, Jonathan son of Shammah the Hararite, Ahim son of Sherar the Hararite, Eliphalet son of Ahasbai the Machathite, Eliam son of Ahithophel the Gilonite, Hezro the Carmelite, Perai the Arbite, Igal son of Nathan of Zobah, Bani the Gadite, Zelek the Ammonite, Naharai the Beerothite, the armor-bearer of Joab son of Zeruiah, Ira the Ithrite, Gareb the Ithrite, and Uriah the Hittite. There were 37 in all. And now let's read Psalm 18. For the choir master of David, the servant of the Lord, who sang this song to the Lord on the day the Lord had delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield, and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me. The torrents of chaos overwhelmed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called upon the Lord. I cried to God for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry for his help reached his ears. Then the earth shook and quaked, and the foundations of the mountains trembled. They were shaken because he burned with anger. Smoke rose from his nostrils, and consuming fire came from his mouth. Glowing coals blazed forth. He parted the heavens and came down with dark clouds beneath his feet. He mounted a cherub and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his hiding place and storm clouds a canopy around him. From the brightness of his presence, his clouds advanced, hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord thundered from heaven. The voice of the Most High resounded, hailstones and coals of fire. He shot his arrows and scattered the foes. He hurled lightning and routed them. The channels of the sea appeared, and the foundations of the world were exposed at your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from foes too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into the open. He rescued me because he delighted in me. The Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness. He has repaid me according to the cleanness of my hands. For I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his ordinances are before me. I have not disregarded his statutes, and I have been blameless before him and kept myself from iniquity. So the Lord has repaid me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands in his sight. To the faithful you show yourself faithful. To the blameless you show yourself blameless. To the pure you show yourself pure. But to the crooked you show yourself shrewd. For you save an afflicted people, but you humble those with haughty eyes. For you, O Lord, light my lamp. My God lights up my darkness. For in you I can charge an army, and with my God I can scale a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is flawless. He is a shield to all who take refuge in him. For who is God besides the Lord, and who is the rock except our God? It is God who arms me with strength and makes my way clear. He makes my feet like those of a deer and stations me upon the heights. He trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me your shield of salvation. Your right hand upholds me, and your gentleness exalts me. You broaden the path beneath me so that my ankles do not give way. I pursued my enemies and overtook them. I did not turn back until they were consumed. I crushed them so they could not rise. They have fallen under my feet. You have armed me with strength for battle. You have subdued my foes beneath me. You have made my enemies retreat before me. I put an end to those who hated me. They cried for help, but there was no one to save them. To the Lord, but he did not answer. I ground them as dust in the face of the wind. I trampled them like mud in the streets. You have delivered me from the strife of the people. You have made me the head of nations. A people I had not known shall serve me. When they hear me, they obey me. Foreigners cower before me. Foreigners lose heart and come trembling from their strongholds. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock. And may the God of my salvation be exalted, the God who avenges me and subdues nations beneath me, who delivers me from my enemies. You exalt me above my foes, you rescue me from violent men. Therefore I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations. I will sing praises to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king. He shows loving devotion to his anointed, to David and his descendants forever. And now let's go to the New Testament, to Romans chapter 3. All right, so far in the book of Romans, we've looked at how he talked about how the gospel is for the Jew and the Gentile. It's God's power to salvation. And those that reject faith are those who turn to idolatry, homosexuality, all of these things that they know are wrong, but they approve of them and they practice them. But he said in the reading last time in chapter 2 that the Jews who condemn these things are actually doing them themselves. Maybe not every single one for every single person, right? But they can have the same sins, even though they know better, even though they teach against it, but they commit the same sin. And so he says that's not going to give you any advantage over the Gentile. When the Gentile actually does the things of the law, the righteous things, then they're basically like one who is circumcised. But the one who's circumcised but does not actually do the things of the law is as if he's not circumcised. The Jew is the one who's one inwardly and not outwardly. It's about the heart, the circumcision of the heart. And in chapter 3 today, we're going to get into a continuation of this idea that both Jew and Gentile need the gospel because all are sinners. And so let's go ahead and get into that in Romans chapter 3. What then is the advantage of being a Jew? Or what is the value of circumcision? Much in every way. First of all, they have been entrusted with the very words of God. What if some did not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Certainly not. Let God be true and every man a liar. As it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and victorious when you judge. But if our unrighteousness highlights the righteousness of God, what shall we say? That God is unjust to inflict his wrath on us? I am speaking in human terms. Certainly not. In that case, how could God judge the world? However, if my falsehood accentuates God's truthfulness to the increase of his glory, why am I still condemned as a sinner? Why not say, as some slanderously claim that we say, let us do evil that good may result? Their condemnation is deserved. What then? Are we any better? Not at all, for we have already made the charge that Jews and Greeks alike are all under sin. As it is written, there is no one righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands, no one who seeks God. All have turned away. They have together become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Their throats are open graves. Their tongues practice deceit. The venom of vipers is on their lips. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Ruin and misery lie in their wake, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. Now, we know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be silenced and the whole world held accountable to God. Therefore, no one will be justified in his sight by works of the law, for the law merely brings awareness of sin. But now, apart from the law, the righteousness of God has been revealed, as attested by the law and the prophets. And this righteousness from God comes through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. There is no distinction, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus. God presented him as the atoning sacrifice through faith in his blood in order to demonstrate his righteousness, because in his forbearance he had passed over the sins committed beforehand. He did this to demonstrate his righteousness at the present time, so as to be just and to justify the one who has faith in Jesus. Where then is boasting? It is excluded. On what principle? On that of works? No, but on that of faith. For we maintain that a man is justified by faith apart from works of the law. Is God the God of Jews only? Is he not the God of Gentiles too? Yes, of Gentiles too, since there is only one God, who will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through that same faith. Do we then nullify the law by this faith? Certainly not. Instead, we uphold the law. All right, in the reading today in 2 Samuel, we read about how David is well established, but there's still some problems. In fact, they have a famine that is not a result of David's sin, but of Saul's sin. That as a nation, they're held responsible for what the leader of their nation had done in the past and has never been dealt with. So if you remember, when Joshua led the people into the land, the Gibeonites were the ones who deceived them and made a covenant with them by saying that they had come from far away, that they did not live in the land. And once they discovered that they did live in the land, it was too late. So they had made slaves of them, but they were not permitted to kill them. And Saul had tried to wipe them out, which was not permitted under the covenant that they had made before God. And so God was cursing the land and bringing this famine there as a result of that. The Gibeonites then asked for these 7 men that they could put to death. They said, "We're not going to ask you to do it. We don't want you to kill anybody, but we want you to deliver these descendants of Saul so that we can put them to death." Now, in general, this is not permitted under the law of Moses. The son is not to die for the sin of the father. But in this case, it seems that God approved of what they did, and David turning these descendants of Saul over. He saved Mephibosheth. He did not have him, the son of Jonathan, killed. And there are other descendants of Saul still alive as well, but he did deliver these over, not because he was angry with them, not to get revenge on Saul's family, but because this was required by the Gibeonites to make amends for this. So God lifted the famine after this, but even with these men being executed and their bodies being left out in the elements, we see some dignity from the mother of some of these, that she came out there and made sure no birds, no animals could get to the bodies. She did this for quite a while, it seems, and so David then honored them by giving them a good burial, along with Saul and Jonathan. He brought their bones from where they had been buried and buried them in their family tomb. So David, in that way, is demonstrating that he's still giving honor to that family. It's what he did here was not something he did because of hatred towards them at all. Then we have this Psalm of David that's recorded in both the Psalm that we read today and in 2 Samuel. This Psalm that he praises God for all that he's done, as he's been well established, he's been delivered from all of his enemies, and he gives credit to God for his success. We're also told the last words of David, and I don't think this necessarily means that these are the last words he ever spoke. I think we're going to see some things that he says later on, although this could be recorded here and then later on is when he actually spoke it. But I believe that when it says that these are the last words of David, that this is the last speech that he gave to the people. And in this speech, he again brings to their attention who God is and how great God is, that God is the one who's established his house, but the wicked will be pushed aside. We read again about David's mighty men. We already read about them in 1 Chronicles. Now we're reading about them again here, and we see basically the same stories about them. Sadly, we read that the last of David's mighty men was Uriah the Hittite, whom David had killed over nothing that Uriah had done wrong, over what David himself had done wrong with Uriah's wife. Very sad part of David's life, but at this point he has accepted the punishment, accepted the consequences, and he is still firmly established by God. He's still loved by God. He's walking by faith and in humility. And that's something we should learn from. We have all sinned, as we got into the reading today in Romans chapter 3. All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And he quotes from the Psalms talking about how wicked man has become. He says that that's not written about Gentiles. He says whatever is written in the law is written to those who are under the law. So he's actually talking about Jews as well as Gentiles in those Psalms. If you go back and you look at those Psalms, David is talking about the enemies of God's people, the enemies of those faithful to the Lord. So the point here is not that every single person is this wicked, because that's simply not the case. We know that. The way that they're described here is not what everyone is, but every type of person, Jew and Gentile, you have this type of person among them. So the main point is that both Jew and Gentile need the same gospel. Everyone falls short of the glory of God. And so there is an advantage to being a Jew because you have the Word of God, you grow up with it, you have that training. But because nobody actually keeps it perfectly, you can't be justified by the law. You can only be justified by Christ through faith. And when he says that man is justified by faith apart from works of the law, the point of that is that this works of the law he's talking about here is specifically the law of Moses, because he says, is God the God of Jews only? The law of Moses was for Jews only. So if you had to be justified by the works of the law of Moses, then that would only be for Jews. And so he says that's not the case. God is the God of Gentiles too. So it has to be done apart from works of the law. And that's done through faith, through the same faith. The Jew has the same faith as the Gentile, and so they're both justified by this faith. But he says that doesn't nullify the law. Instead, it upholds the law. And that's because in the law we find this idea. And it actually teaches that when Christ comes, when the prophet like Moses comes, listen to him. All of those things are in the law. So when you actually listen to Christ and you move beyond the law of Moses, it's not because the law of Moses is wrong or bad. It's because that's what the law of Moses says to do. And so when you move on beyond that, as that becomes obsolete, you're not saying anything bad about the law. You're upholding the law. You're saying, yes, it accomplished its purpose. It made us aware of sin. And now we have something that it was preparing everyone for. We have Christ. We have faith in him. And now we have something so much better. All right, but next time in chapter 4, we'll get into more of this justification by faith, that both Jew and Gentile have to be justified by faith. But we'll get into that tomorrow, Lord willing. So join me again then as we continue on with this Berean pursuit.